Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. I'd like to title this segment, Institutions of Higher Learning. Once again, I'd like to title this segment, Institutions of Higher Learning. Now, people must be aware that the first thing that we are to teach our sons and daughters is that we are to have a responsibility to the group as a whole, to the nation of Israel. Now, first and foremost, we are to have respect unto the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Without that, it's hard for us to have any respect for ourselves and respect for each other. However, when we walk in Torah, we understand the importance of how all of this actually ties in together. We show respect unto the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. He then binds us onto Him. And by way of that, we are now binded onto each other, and we find that there is a responsibility that we have to the nation and to each other. And this has always been how it was in the days of old. Now, a nation's people are its greatest resource. The gold, the diamonds, etc. There has to be someone who will actually extract these minerals and these precious metals out of the ground. However, the brain power and the manpower of any nation is its people. We have to understand when we send our sons and daughters out to these many different institutions of higher learning, that this is not to the benefit of our children, nor is it to the benefit of our nation. The smartest, the best, and the brightest of us is stripped away from us to the benefit of our enemies. Our enemies have absolutely no plans and no intent of allowing the smartest, the best, and the brightest of us to sit in the midst of us. They will extract them by means of bribery. They will pay them, offer them a better job, etc., etc. They will reward them or recruit them to come and work for the dominant society. This is just how it works. If you were to conquer a people, no way in the world would you allow them to keep the smartest of them in the midst of them. Then all of a sudden you will be competing against your rivals. You'll be competing against the people that you have conquered, and thus insurrection ensues. So you have to remove the smart ones, remove the bright ones, for they are the biggest threat to you. As we go into these schools of higher learning, your colleges, etc., there's many of the HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. They are funded by your enemies, and therefore the curriculum is set forth by your enemies. No one is going to conquer you, have you in their land, and allow you to teach something that is counterproductive to what they're trying to do or what they have done. They have conquered us and dragged us across the earth. And now we are within the midst of them. It is not within their best interest for us to veer off the path and teach something that is counterproductive to what they're trying to do. So therefore, it's imperative that they control the religious sector. It's important that they control the educational sector. They have to teach you exactly what they want you to know. And the things that they don't want you to know, they steer you far away from it. So it's great that our children would not want to be hoodlums and selling drugs and things like that. So I encourage those who are going to college. I think it's a very good thing to get an education. But is that education going to be to the benefit of your people, or is it going to be to the benefit of those who have oppressed and done harm to your people? So this is where we have to make a decision. Okay, I'm going to school. What for? Am I going to allow myself to be used against my own people? Or can I take this education, bring it back to where I live, and make it a benefit towards me and towards my people, the knowledge that has been gained? The thing is that we're in such a situation to where everything is owned and controlled by our enemies, especially the educational system. Like I said before, they cannot allow you to educate yourself. They won't allow it because chances are If we are to just sit back in the midst of ourselves, no spies in the midst of us, just us alone, and all of our bright minds were allowed to stay within our quote unquote nation, it would only be a matter of time before we analyzed and realized that we were under duress and that we are conquered people. And in a short while, we will seek to overthrow those who have conquered us and be a threat unto them. This whole spirit of trying to overthrow the conquerors is simply it's quelled by what Dr. Claude Anson would call meritorious manumissions, meaning there will be gifts, bribes, and rewards for you siding with your enemies. After all, it's an easy thing for us to do for the simple fact that our people do not have anything to offer us monetarily. The big corporate companies can always pull you away to work for them. Uh, there are very few quote unquote Israelite owned companies that can actually hire you and pay you that sort of money. And so, therefore, we don't have the ability to compete with our enemies, and this is by design. So, though the education and the higher learning is important for our people, we have to find a way by which we can take what we have learned and bring it back onto our people and better the nation. We have many of these Trojan horses sitting in the midst of our quote unquote communities. What if those Trojan horses were hospitals? What a difference that would make in the midst of our people. What if it was clinics? Or what if it was job training centers where our people can go and learn a trade? But none of these things will be set in the midst of you for the simple fact that these things will cause a problem. You will become a problem to those who are oppressing you and who have oppressed you. So, therefore, we will not be allowed to sit still uninterrupted by which the spirit of dissent and rebellion against what has happened to us will be allowed to fester. It will not happen. So they will do all that they can to strip us of our brightest and our best. That includes from our athletes to our fighters to our singers. Uh, we can hear the local talent, and they will only sing for us to hear for a while. After a while, the local record company or the major record label may sign them to a deal. All of a sudden, they have stripped them away from us. Now they work for other people. And so we are unable to pay what the major manufacturers and the major labels would be able to pay them. So therefore, we're losing our talent. They're stripping us of our talented, bright minds right before our eyes. Not only that, we're actually taking our sons and our daughters and we're feeding them to our enemies. We're taking our sons and our daughters and we're going to send them to these football camps, get their heads busted and their knees knocked out because we're trying to get them to go play football on this plantation. No one cares for them there. Once they're injured, uh, then they're forgotten. So we're actually double minded in the fact that we have acknowledged and can acknowledge that the system that we're in is a wicked system. However, we are willing to say, you know what, I recognize that the system is wicked, but yet, if I can only be allowed to participate and they would give me a better seat at the table, then I won't cry so much. And so, therefore, this is where we are. We're double minded in that we want to criticize the system. At the same time, we want to be a part of it. We just seek to have a better position within it. And we cannot have it both ways. Uh, we have minds such as Cornel West, who said some things that the establishment did not like. And so, therefore, I do believe that it denied him his tenure or stripped him of tenure, one of the two. Anything that's been given to us can be taken away. And if we are to do anything that's in opposition to or that will challenge those that are in authority who are our enemies, whatever whatever has been given unto us will be stripped away. And we will be sent back into places that are acceptable unto them. School of theology, Any one of us that's in these organizations, it's a great asset and they are great tools to our enemies, because all that someone who's teaching theology is going to do, he's going to reinforce to our youth that they are not to resist and they're to wait on such and such to come out the sky and save them, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, these are harmful ways of thinking that's being taught to our people, young, middle aged, and old. So our people need to understand that nothing that's been given to us is to our benefit. Our enemies will not, and I repeat, our enemies will not give us anything that will be to our benefit, that will aid us in overthrowing him or strengthen us that we may be in opposition to him. He has spent entirely too much time and too much money in what he has been trying to do over the last several centuries in order to keep us in our place. So we're to remember that yes, an education is good, but when you do get that education, are you using it to better yourself and to better your people, or are you simply switching sides? You're using all the education you have gained to go strengthen the arm of your enemies and will side with your enemies over your own people, thinking that there's some good end result. And there will be none. For there will come a time when they will remind you exactly who you are and where you are. So we are to remember these things when it comes to these higher places of higher learning. We see clearly now that some of our men, Deion Sanders in particular, has actually chosen to be a coach of an HBCU. We've always known that none of what they have done is fair. None of what these people do is right. They are unrighteous people. That's why we're in the midst of them. So now to even contemplate or to think that our people will take their talents and use it to benefit our own people, somehow the unrighteous is actually shocked by this. And we are seeing that anytime that we decide to take our talents and use it for the good of our own people or for the benefit and the upliftment of our own people, we are criticized, etc., blackballed, you name it. You become acceptable in the sight of your enemies when you take any of your talents and make a bold claim, a bold statement that this which I have, I will use this to benefit myself and to benefit most of all my people. And somehow our enemies have a fear of and a hate for any of our men, especially our men, that will stand firm and put his nation first before others. This is unusual for them because this is not what they have taught us. And we will see more and more of this as we continue to teach the righteousness of the Most High. And for us to understand that we're dealing with a holy people and we're dealing with a mighty nation. And now we start to actually turn towards each other in righteousness and in truth. And when we start to do this, these people will show you exactly what they feel about you, regardless of how many college degrees you've got. So do not be fooled about your education for the simple fact that it's of no benefit to you. Your education and the job that you have is a benefit to the dominant society. And if you don't believe that, step out of line and watch them strip you of whatever it is, whatever accreditation that you have gotten. They will take it away and will blackball you from going anywhere else because they control everything else. So let's not be confused in thinking that somehow we're better than each other. We have this problem where we're trying to always magnify ourselves one above the other. And the man that's sitting in the boardroom and the man that's sitting out in the street that does not have that degree, their plight is the same. It's the same exact plight. A man will work for many years to get into this boardroom, get paid XYZ amount of dollars just to be undermined and just to be reminded exactly that he is not above the circumstances of his own people. And that can be a painful thing. Once you've gotten to these levels, it's hard for you to cry out and speak against a system that has rewarded you. And so many of them are forced to suffer in silence. That is the price you pay once you have decided to switch sides for a few dollars. So, as our children get ready to go off to college, we're to remind them that while they're there, they're not to lose sight of who they are and why they're going there. Certainly, it's to get a higher level of education. It certainly increases your earning potential. However, we are to remind our sons and daughters not to go there and become complacent. Do not forget who you are. Do not forget where you are. And certainly, be very aware that you're in the land of your enemies, for they will say things and do things, sometimes subtly, sometimes bold in your face. And you have to prepare them to deal with the wickedness that they may find in the corporate office and elsewhere. For many of our parents have raised us not properly preparing us for the enemies of ours that will do us harm. If not physically, they will do us harm financially, and they will do us harm psychologically as well with the things that they say and do. Undermine us that we may not get a promotion, etc., etc., etc. And many of our young children, 18 and 19, that are now going to college, they have been shielded from the realities of an adult. And we have to prepare them because as they go into this college environment, and some of them may be stepping into the workplace, they're going to face some things that they've never seen and they have never heard because you have failed to teach them and inform them. So let's go ahead and make sure that we tell our children exactly why they're going, and if possible, lay out a plan to where, okay, if you're going to go here to get this degree, now how can we take what you have learned and to where you can bring this back to your people that they may be encouraged and they may benefit from the knowledge that you have gained. This is something that many of us do not think about. And it's about high time that we start doing it because as we have this competition for natural resources and things begin to get worse, they're already bad, but they will get worse. We're going to have to lean on each other. And many of us have skills that we have learned in the midst of the heathen that we can run a full functioning nation. However, for us to do this, it's going to require us being on one accord. That law will have to be first. We have all that we need. What we do not have is any cohesion in the midst of our people. We do not have any trust in the midst of our people. And in some cases, we do not have any caring for each other. All of this becomes fixed once we decide to turn to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Then we will have a spirit of brotherhood. We will work together. We will work in unison. And the nation will rise. From all the four corners of the earth, we will come together. I'm seeing much of this now as we are putting the pieces together and we're actually putting the dots. We're connecting the dots to where we're beginning to realize exactly what has happened. So now it's time for us to act. We realize what has happened. We have all the information that we need to change it. Now it's just a matter of us getting on one accord and getting it done. The undisciplined will not do it. Those who are well established within the framework of the many systems that our enemies have put in place around the earth, wicked systems, there are many Israelites who are well fitted in these systems that refuse to and will not participate in bringing this system down because they know good and well, hey, look, if this system falls, I fall as well. They have been given a good position within this system. So there's many of our people that will not want to see the destruction of this wicked system, even though they are well aware that this is against them and against their people. They have somehow managed to slip through the cracks, if you will, and have gained a position that's higher than everyone else. And they would feel that they have done this by their own merits. I will say it again, for I've said it before in previous videos. When you find one of our men or our women sitting at the table of our enemies, is simply because our enemies have made it so that they will not poison the food. They are on board, fully on board. And there's only certain areas where we are acceptable in their sight, and that's mostly in a subservient role. So if you're teaching JC and you're going through a school of theology, you will always be well accepted there. However, if you dare speak against this establishment of Rome, and you dare to do anything that will cause your people to become conscious of their current circumstances and to act against those who are doing them harm, then you're looking at being taken out by your enemies. This becomes a very hard thing to do when a man is walking within the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts of the Most High. For the law does bring about peace, and the Most High will protect his servants that are serving him in righteousness and in truth. And he will protect those servants who are causing the people to bring all these things to mind from the days of old, to remind them who they are, where they are, why they are here, who their God is, what they have done that has caused them to be in this predicament. And so as we begin to teach this, there will be many that may rise up against us, but they shall fall. For this is the Most High's doing that we have risen up to teach this. Just think, there is no man of any of the other nations that is coming before you telling you that you are to turn back to the Most High's laws and you are to walk in righteousness. You've never heard that out of a Christian pastor's mouth. Never. They want to speak about God in one hand and celebrate Pride Month in the other hand. This is the type of people that we're dealing with, unrighteous in all of their ways. So let's make sure that we arm our youth and make sure that they have a responsibility to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. They have responsibility to their people and to their nation. That when they go off to college, what they're learning is not for their own benefit. They are to take that information, bring that back, mentor our children, our youth, that they may have some knowledge, or at least they will be encouraged to get a higher education and take what they have learned, bring it back to the people that it may be of benefit for them. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is truth. Keep in mind, you don't own a school, the HBCUs. Whoever owns it is those who are financing it. So if we're not financing these schools, we don't own these schools. And if a man is going to pay for something, he's going to have a control and a say in what's taught there. Our enemies have no interest in us teaching ourselves anything. All that we know is that which they have taught us. When we start going out and learning things for ourselves, then we become dangerous because all of a sudden we're no longer on the path that he has set. But we're going to get off of his path anyway, for we are to separate ourselves from him. And as we start to do that, you will see them scramble and panic and lash out with the only language that they know. That's violence. But they will fall and they will fail. Once again, peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is truth. And peace to the stranger that will take a hold of the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and do them. Peace, Israel.